Hey, what's up, guys? I just beat Twisted Metal on PS3. My very first Twisted Metal game, so I'm not a fan of the series, and I'm not a big fan of PlayStation 3. This is probably the first game I've bought since Little Big Planet 2. But all that said, I just thought I'd share my thoughts, and essentially, I liked this game a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun, um, and so was the multiplayer. It's just kind of a throwback to a type of game that we don't really get that much anymore. Kind of more arcadey style gameplay, and it's all about gameplay. Although there is a story in the single player here. It's super cheesy. Um, yeah, I guess I could just talk about that real first. There is a story that goes through the single player. Basically, three stories kind of. This guy Calypso, he's set up these events, and if you win them, you get your wishes granted. And so you play through as Sweet Tooth, as Grimm or Mr. Grimm, and then as Dollface. So they each have like their own mini campaign. There's like three parts of the story here, and they each have like one, two, three. They each have like six events, and which will include a race and a boss fight. And their stories are told with these cutscenes that will happen at the beginning, middle, and end of their little story, which they're shot with like live actors and they're super cheesy, but kind of cool. Like can't really take it seriously. I mean, it's not taking itself seriously. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's weird. You don't see that in games very often anymore, but it was cool. And I don't know for the single player, I would I liked it for the most part, but there were a few times where it's very hard. But there's a few times where it crosses the line into being just too hard and not fun. Specifically, there's one boss battle. It's Grimm's boss battle, and you're like driving around this canyon, kind of trying to chase this giant robotic doll face who's floating around above you. And it's very long and pretty hard. And it gets to this one point where she'll be moving around. This giant robot will be flying around like really fast, and around her is this safe zone. And if you're outside of it for too long, your car's just gonna explode. And I just thought that was very hard, like trying to drive around these turns and stuff and not fall off the cliff and keeping up with her and trying to kill her. It's just it was a bit much. Um, the races, there's one race for each character, so there's three races in the game, and they all pretty much suck. Like I hated them. Like the first one, once you figure out what you gotta do, it's not that hard. But the third one, Dollface is the final part of the campaign. Her race, I literally spent all of last night trying to beat it. We're talking well over 150 tries to the point where I had the whole thing memorized. And it's a checkpoint race. So you have to hit every single checkpoint. And you're jumping between buildings and shit while you're doing this. So one false move, and you're going to fall off the building or something, and you're never getting back up to that checkpoint. And even if you did, you're so far behind at that point, it doesn't matter. So this race, this checkpoint race you have to do as Dollface, it requires perfection. One false move and you're done. You might as well start over. And it literally took me so long and so many tries, and it wasn't fun at all. And it's something that requires perfection, but this is a like vehicle combat game where there's other cars trying to take you out. So even if you haven't memorized, you're doing everything right, you're gonna get hit by someone at a bad moment. Something's bound to happen usually. So not only do you have to like know your way through this race inside and out and be perfect, but you just also have to pray that like you don't get totally screwed over by the AI cars that are trying to kill you. And like that was just to me that was like the point of I can't believe I beat it, and I'm happy I did because then I got to play the final boss, which is also quite difficult, but not as annoying as the races. So I appreciate the fact that the game's kind of a throwback and it's arcadey and it's actually difficult and hard, but I feel like the second boss and the third race they were a bit much. And there was one review that called the single player of this game miserable, and in those moments, I'd have to agree with that reviewer. Um, overall, like for the most part, I liked the campaign. I like that type of gameplay. I'd love to see them make another. Just kind of remove the races and add more fun events where it's just like you trying to kill other cars. That would make it a lot better, honestly. But besides those few events that I hated, I had fun with the single player. The multiplayer is an absolute blast. Like even when I'm sucking, I'm just having a lot of fun with it, and they really did put a lot of work into the multiplayer of this game, and I could see myself playing the multiplayer for quite a bit. The only problem is it's still being ironed out. They're still having issues, and I guess all you could do is be patient and hope Sony takes the time and effort to fix this. Considering this is like a big exclusive for them, I would hope they would. I know David Jaffe has been working really hard to get stuff fixed, but there's only so much he could do. Uh, I could get into quick online matches generally all right, but I've heard of lots of issues, and I've had issues where I've been disconnected in the middle of a game and stuff like that. It's not like the multiplayer is really fun, but it needs some TLC. It needs some fixes. But it is I like it a lot. Um, there's only a couple like game modes, but you can tell they put thought into them. I've mostly just been playing free for all, just trying to get better. I actually won an event or two, but for the most part, I'm getting my ass kicked. But it's fun. The one thing I'll say about the multiplayer and I guess the game in general is the level design is just great. Really cool levels with just like tons of hidden things and just stuff going on all over the place. There's one called Black Rock Stadium, I think it's called. It's just a great level, I think. Just lots of fun. Levels changing all the time, and I don't know. I think the level design and just the pure gameplay of this game is just really fun. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say besides that. I like the game. If I had to like review it for our site, I would actually probably give it. I would want to give it 4 out of 5, but the parts of the single player would maybe knock it down to 3. I don't know. But other than that, I think if you're a fan of the series, you probably would really dig this. Um, I don't know because I wasn't a fan of the series, but I did try out Twisted Metal Black, and the controls and whatnot are pretty similar. The gameplay is pretty similar. This is just a billion times better. So, in my opinion, I don't have any nostalgia for Twisted Metal Black, but I would assume if you like the old ones, you would like this. And if you're just into like those old types of games, like to me, like I've said this a billion times, it reminds me of Battle Tanks back on an N64, which I wish they would redo that series. I think it was 3DO, so maybe there might be some problems with like the licenses, like no one owns them or no one knows who owns them or what. But I'd love to see that series updated someday. But it's just nice to see something like this released nowadays. What else can I say? I doubt I'll play the single player again because of the few events that just really sucked. But I might try a couple of the events on a harder difficulty. I just can't imagine this game on twisted difficulty though. Oh my god. And the multiplayer, I'll be playing it, man. I've been playing it for a while. It'll probably be the only thing I've played on my PS3 for a long, long time. But I'm happy I bought it. I really am. So that's my thoughts. My recommendation is if it sounds like it could be fun to you, I'd say pick it up once it drops in price a little bit so it's less of a risk. You can't really rent it because it has an online pass, so, and the most fun you're gonna have with this is on the multiplayer. So unless you're gonna play local multiplayer, which they do have, um, but yeah, I say get it. I'm sure it'll drop in price eventually. Then you definitely want to get it. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and later.